Well, we pick up in Revelation on chapter 14, is where we left off last week. And we were at verse 16. We were discussing the scene where Jesus is sitting on a cloud with a golden crown and a sharp sickle. And God sends a message through an angel to reap the earth. It's time to do it. So verse 16, so the one seated on the cloud swung his sickle over the earth, and the earth was harvested. That's a pretty short and simple sentence with vast consequences. What we're talking about is the entire earth being transformed from living human beings to dead human beings. Now, this is again, this is a scene of what's coming. This is what happens over the rest of Revelation, up to and including the final judgment and the second coming of Jesus. And so this is kind of like a mini preview of what's coming. But as the sickle is swung, human life ends. No living human being is going to go to Judgment Day with a human body like we have today. Every human being will die before that process starts. Whether you're a saint or whether you're lost, you won't go to judgment in your human physical body. We are all transformed. Good morning. And when this happens, it will be in the blink of an eye, in a moment. It won't be a long, lengthy process. And as we see the future judgments coming, they will come quicker and quicker. This scene with the sickle gives you the impression of harvesting a field of grain, like wheat. That's what the sickle is used for cutting it down. We have references about the wheat and tares. In other words, God has left the wicked in the crop, in the fields, to be sorted and separated at a later time. That's part of this process of harvesting the earth. So, if you think about it, it's pretty dreadful. It's pretty sad, because when this happens, there's people. That's the final call. There's no more choice. There's no more chance. You can't become saved. You can't change your mind. You can't say, "Oh, wait a minute, Jesus, come save me." This cuts you off forever and sends you to one destination or the other, heaven or hell. Now, the next verses. Any comments, questions?
I'm confused. So Jesus says he uses the sickle in 15, and he does it again in 18.
Yeah.
So he does it twice, or is that the same thing repeated?
Well, let's read those and add those. It's difficult. These verses right here are very difficult, and one of the keys that I picked up on real early is you read all the commentaries, and almost every one of them say this is difficult to understand, and it's more difficult to explain because it's difficult to understand. And so the commentaries are all over the place in terms of how does this fit with the rest of Revelation? Well, this is a premonition, a preview. Here it says he uses a sickle and harvests the earth. But that actually, it takes 3 more chapters to explain what happened when he did that. So it's kind of this is kind of a Reader's Digest of what's coming. And the next verses, let's read 17 and 18. Then another angel who also had a sharp sickle came out of the temple in heaven. Remember, he saw Jesus on a cloud on Mount Zion. So that was on the earth. This angel he sees coming out of the temple, the heavenly temple. Yet another angel who had authority over fire came from the altar, which again would be in heaven. And he called out with a loud voice to the one who had the sharp sickle, the first angel, use your sharp sickle and gather the clusters of grapes from the vineyard of the earth, because its grapes have ripened. So this is the fifth and sixth angels during this vision. And one comes out of the temple, one comes from the altar. So many people read this as two different occurrences. It's not Jesus with the second sharp sickle, it's an angel. And the harvest is of grapes, not of wheat. So see, it's, and there's a disagreement between many of the scholars as to whether this actually refers to two different actions, or whether it's two descriptions of the same thing. And many people believe, both ways. There's no consensus of, well, you're weird, all the rest of us think this way. It's all over the board as to what people think. And some of the reasons for that is when we go on to the next verses, 19. So the angel swung his sickle at the earth and gathered the grapes from the vineyard of the earth, and he threw them into the great winepress of God's wrath. Then the press was trampled outside the city, and blood flowed out of the press up to the horses' bridles for 180 miles. A lot of blood. 180 miles from here to Dallas, or here to Joplin. Horses' bridles are, 3 to 4 feet up to that's a lot of blood. And here is why some people move into the two separate occurrences. Some people say this is a scene after Armageddon, that the grapes and the blood for 180 miles has some similarities to what happens at the Battle of Armageddon and after it. So they say this is the sickle being swung and all those armies being slaughtered and killed by God. And the other one, the one that is described first, is the final one that eliminates the rest of human life. So I don't have a particular preference as to which one, which way to interpret it, and like I said, many others don't either. And again, this is a premonition, a preview. It's not what's happening right now in the sequence of things in Revelation. It's what's going to happen. So how does it apply through the rest of Revelation? We don't know. So are we looking at a scene that is just giving you a glimpse of what's going to happen, or is it actually describing when it talks about the blood?
I'm inclined that it's a picture of what happens, not the thing that happens. But so I'm in that symbolic type camp. But like the potter's wheel, there may have been a potter's wheel, but it was an image of the thing being formed and how we're shaped. This is the image of how the earth is reaped, not the actual way that it's reaped. That's where I'm at.
Give us some insight, Mike.
Two different events.
Separate events.
Reason why you use two separate illustrations. it's all the same.
Yeah,
Lost coin. Lost coin, lost son. That's why I think it's the same thing, teaching the same story from different
Yeah.
ways.
Three lost. Really one parable. would be the one
Well-
lost, one didn't know was lost.
I was wondering if it was Jesus, his sickle was to get the ones that had been converted and out, and then the angel came along and took care of the rest. But I don't know. I mean, I was just wondering, because it's an angel the second time, not Jesus. I don't know.
So the first one doesn't say that it's gathering of grapes.
Yeah.
First one, I'm inclined to think is wheat.
reaping the earth.
Yeah.
And then
The
that's
second one is
vines.
gathering the grapes for wrath or grapes of wrath. So that's where I think it's kind of the two different functions that are happening perhaps simultaneously.
Oh, we'll never know. I'm to
Yeah.
put there until, but I'm just wondering.
Yeah, well, if we're still curious when we're in heaven, we'll know. 'Cause we'll be
Okay,
able- we'll be able to
we're
act.
here.
But yeah, I don't know that we'll hear that much at that point. But yeah, and like I said, this reaping of the reaping of the earth and the grains, it's not just cutting it down. It's also cutting it down and harvesting it, and part of harvesting it is let's pull the weeds out and throw them over there, and then take the grain and then process it and throw the chaff away. And then when we have the seeds, then we can start making bread. So all that fits into reaping the earth. It includes all those phases and steps, which is going to happen over the next few chapters of Revelation. So that these are, like you said, symbolic representations of, okay, you're seeing what's going to happen, and then we'll describe it in detail as we get to the rest of the chapters. So, some of the questions, you might have is, where is the, 144,000? Are they cut down also? Or do they escape this?
So the other part of in the harvest, that's not a punishment. We think of it as, oh, that's tragic to be harvested. Well, that's what we were there for, is to be harvested. That's like,
If you're not.
job's
harvested-
done, excellent. Now let's have the bounty of it. So,
A harvest means something is ready. Something is prepared.
And
It's time.
And nothing's worse than having a crop that is ready and not harvested,
Yes.
and it falls to the ground and is lost. So the harvest is good.
Yeah.
We want to be harvested. That's,
Yes.
that's how we.
Absolutely.
right.
But it is the end for all the rest.
And the
For
new
the
beginning.
weeds, they are now cut down and thrown into the fire.
Yeah.
And it is the final time.
Yeah.
Fruit of the harvest. Perfect. Our purpose is
Okay.
this is our final greatest purpose. Right now, we can't obtain that in perfection like we will be in.
Yeah, we're not worthy. Okay, I picked some verses out that may give us some more understanding of this. John 5:28. Do not be amazed at this, for a time is coming when all who are in their graves will hear his voice and come out. Those who have done what is good will rise to live, and those who have done what is evil will rise to be condemned. So at this harvest, it's all cut down, but it's separated to go to the appropriate place. And we won't get to heaven unless we are harvested. In 1 Corinthians 15:51, behold, I tell you a mystery, we shall not sleep, but we shall all be changed in a moment, in the twinkling of an eye, at the last trumpet, for the trumpet will sound and the dead will be raised imperishable, and we shall be changed. We all have to be changed. We all have to be transformed, because we can't take this We can't take our money with us, we can't take our clothes with us, we can't take the skin with us.
Not the corruptible flesh, it doesn't go.
Right, exactly. Okay, so now we'll start chapter 15, and this kind of gets us back into the flow of Revelation. The last 3 chapters has been some kind of sideline information that was given to John and he relayed to us. But now we're going to go back to the judgment sequences from the seals to the trumpets and now to the bowls. And that's what chapter 15 does, is puts us back on track. Verse 1, then I saw another great and awe-inspiring sign in heaven, 7 angels with the 7 last plagues, for with them God's wrath will be completed. A lot of symbolic language in this chapter, almost, I mean, it's all symbolic. And as much as I want to read the Bible literally, there's almost nothing in here that you can read literally. But it represents the 7 bowls is it. This is the last scene, the last act. After this, it's over. After this, God's wrath will have been completed, and those who deserve to be judged and punished will be done appropriately so. God's wrath will be complete. And John sees it as an awe-inspiring. Wow, all the bad people are going to be gone, and it's just going to be God's people in heaven together with him. That is a wonderful thing to look forward to, including the dragon, the beast, the false prophet. They're all going to get their just rewards. They're going to be where they're supposed to be, and they're going to be vanquished. And that's the last stage. Verse 2. I also saw something like a sea of glass mixed with fire, and those who had won victory over the beast, its image, and the number of its name were standing on the sea of glass with harps from God. If you remember back to chapter 14, when John was describing the scene of heaven and God on the throne, it also, in verse 6, chapter 4, also in front of the throne, there was what looked like a sea of glass, clear as crystal. So we're back at that scene in heaven, except now there's fire under the glass or reflecting off the glass. So it's still pure, clear crystal glass with the fire of judgment seen around it. And those who were martyred during the tribulation, those who die during this process, those who are murdered by the Antichrist and by the actions of the false prophet, the ones who become saints, become saved during that time, they're on this the sea of glass, and they are speaking. And in verse 3, it tells us what they're actually seeing, and tells us what they've seen. They sang the song of God's servant Moses and the song of the Lamb. Great and awe-inspiring are your works, Lord God the Almighty. Just and true are your ways, King of the nations. Lord, who will not fear or glorify your name. For you alone are holy. All the nations will come and worship before you because your righteous acts have been revealed. So these martyrs who lost their life, who died during the tribulation, but they died as saints, they died as believers, they died as saved people. They're now praising God and thanking him and and announcing that everyone is going to worship God. Very shortly, every knee will bow, every mouth will confess. Even those who are not saved, even those who have denied God, those who have been worshiping the Antichrist, they're going to realize, and there's going to be no doubt, they're all going to be worshiping God, even the ones that are going to go to hell. It's going to be too late. They can't change the outcome.
But they have to confess and declare that God,
They acknowledge God. is God.
yeah, and it's every human being who's ever been spoken into existence in the image of God. Everyone who's ever born, everyone who ever died, God spoke into existence before the foundation of the earth. Every knee. Awesome.
And that's why, I get this image and something in me wants to say, yeah, finally, you finally see that you're wrong. You finally see that, but then I think, but now you're going to go to hell for all eternity. I feel sorry for you. I'm so sad. I'm not happy in my revenge. I'm not happy, to think of you having to spend all eternity, especially with somebody that you knew, that you know.
That wouldn't be loving.
Well, I think that's why we'll be glorified too. We will not be in the flesh anymore. We won't have the robe of flesh as we know it. The curse is broken over the saints. We will have the heart of God, heart and mind of God completely. We will feel as he does over their loss, over their eternal loss. We won't have this human intellect anymore.
Verse 5. After this I looked, and the heavenly temple, the tabernacle of testimony, was opened. Out of the temple came the 7 angels with the 7 plagues, dressed in pure bright linen with golden sashes wrapped around their chests. Okay, so verse 1, he sees the 7 angels, and then we see the sea of glass, and we're switching back and forth from some scenes on the earth, scenes in heaven. He introduces the 7 angels in verse 1, and then verse 5, he describes them and shows where they're coming out of, the tabernacle of testimony. But they're here. They are identifiable, and they are present. In verse 7, one of the 4 living creatures, this is from the scene in heaven, gave the 7 angels 7 bowls, golden bowls, filled with the wrath of God who lives forever and ever. These bowls are symbolic containers of God's wrath. At this point, how big the bowl would have to be to hold God's wrath. But it is God's wrath, and it is the final justice for the earth. Verse 8, then the temple was filled with smoke from the glory of God and from his power, and no one could enter the temple until the 7 plagues of the 7 angels were completed. So God has said, okay, it's over. I'm not giving them any more time. They've had, and this, if you think about it, this is where God started the rain for Noah. This is, okay, you've all had your chance. I've given you the warnings. I've made it apparent. Now I'm going to shut the boat up and start the rain, and you are going to drown. You missed the boat. This is where we're at in terms of the entire world. And he says, once these angels leave the temple, they go out. He shuts the doors, and he's not going to involve himself anymore. The angels are going to go out there and do their work. So the temple is closed up until they have finished their job.
When it gets to that point, you think he will, his timing will pertain to all that will come, have come?
That's what I always thought.
Is that when I'm not trying to figure out when he's going to come, it's all gonna happen, but we know that he knows the right time. And he knows when all that will come has come. That's when it'll happen. But I'm hearing about,
That final person, that
Yeah.
final eternal spirit.
yeah, that will
Yeah.
come by faith has come.
Well,
But there's them ones that whenever they start seeing it all happen, that, I guess, will provoke others to come.
well,
Against some.
and that process has been going on now
Yeah.
for a while.
Yeah, and then maybe there's a point there, when they get to a point there that all that will come has come. He knows when that is.
Certainly.
Well, and think of the scene that he just described. There's the sea of ice in front of the throne of God. And the people who have been saved during this tribulation
Final.
are all standing there. And he's watching them, and he's saying, okay, there's Joe, there's Mike, there's Clint. Okay, we're all here. We're done. Get the 7 angels out, give them the bowls and send them out. We're shutting this thing down.
So,
To me, that Revelations 15:2 is basically telling us that it's the last of the people who choose God, who receive Christ. From how it's, whatever this is. This particular version, the one that says that is standing before him on the glass. And having harps of God. Those are the final ones, it appears.
So that completes chapter 15. Let's go ahead and start with chapter 16, because I don't think that these chapters kind of run together. So it's not like a starting point.
I was thinking about that song. I was trying to look at it. There's a great day coming. Did y'all ever sing that?
Mm,
The great day, coming, the great day coming. There's a great day coming by and by. When the saints and the sinners shall be parted right and left. Are you ready for that day to come? Are you ready? Are you ready? Are you ready for the judgment day? I was saying that, Clint.
Probably.
That's what I was thinking.
It's a
It's a hymn, yeah, R&B. It probably didn't go quite exactly like that. But when I think of judgment, I can't think of anything but joy and sadness.
Sure.
And all of us have family that's saved and we don't have, don't. And it's I'll just keep thinking, man, we need to keep praying and working.
That's why it's described as a great and terrible day.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a double-edged sword, so to speak.
And remember, I've heard it explained that will we know when we're in heaven, will we remember our time on earth? Will we remember the people? Yeah, we will,
Mhm.
because we're given examples of that in the Bible. But
Sure.
we're also told that at some point after glorification,
Mhm.
we'll never shed another tear. We'll
Absolutely.
never have another sad thought.
And in
So,
fact,
so our memories of those people who we love that went to hell
Mhm.
will be erased.
in fact, it gripped me recently that it is described as God the Father wiping every tear. God the Father. So that really gripped me. And yes, he takes away that element where we're able to experience the sadness that brings tears.
So right now, we think of being awful for those people who have.
And it will be.
But when we're in heaven, it won't be something that makes us sad.
I keep thinking of that verse, I think it was Tom quoted the other day, but God's not slack concerning his promises. King James, Version. Some men count slackness, but he's patient toward us. We're not willing that any should perish, but that all should come to repentance. God's trying to get everybody everybody that will be saved. He
Mhm.
wants us
He
to be
does
saved.
everything that he does, you know, if you read his word, listen, he does everything that he can do, and all except for physically fullness,
Yeah,
you know, he's still with a
Yeah.
standout, trying to lead us over the right.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
He does it-
here's
everything.
here's your ticket, here's your
Yeah.
ticket to
It's true.
eternity.
yeah.
All you gotta do is believe and
Yeah.
believe. He does everything he can do without forcing us.
Which he will not do.
You know, he gives us a big, short.
And yet the world seems to be going in even more of the wrong direction day by day.
Like they're plummeting faster and faster towards.
My brother
away.
gets so angry watching the news and all this and complaining and he's a Christian. And sometimes I just get tired.
Who?
My brother.
Oh,
So, cause we're at mom's every day and
yes.
I'm like, maybe this has to happen. Things, God's in control. These things have to happen.
And, you know, my father, he's grown a lot in that. In the beginning, I share your opinion on that. And I begin to tell him little things like, you know, a little bit of that, hearing about all that goes a long way.
Oh, yeah.
And we are not to, that's not our focus. And we're not to be disturbed and at unrest. We're to walk in peace. And so if too much of that gets to you, turn it off.
He has slowed way down on watching it. but
Yes, my father is doing better and better.
God is a good God. And in the days of Noah, everyone that deserved to be saved, everyone that should have been saved was saved. Those who lost deserved to be lost. They got what they deserved.
I don't
So
want to
so
do
God
it.
is fair.
I think for
And
a lot
it's,
of,
and it's
I don't
the
want-
same way at the end of time.
And I think we
Rose?
need to continue praying
Oh,
for
my,
our
yeah.
leaders.
that is our,
If you don't like them,
Right.
you need to pray for them.
and I think for a lot of Americans, because of the founding of our country, it was founded on by godly men, on the word of God. We're seeing that being just tilled up and they want, and that they're not being dishonest about it. They want to wipe it out and lay down a new foundation that's better. But I think for a lot of us, believers, it's just hard to watch the fact that we are going to lose our country. It's going to be a one world order. And like you said, it has to take place.
Certain
This
things
is not
happen.
the kingdom.
And that's real hard for a lot of people, Americans especially. We're number
Praying
one.
over this myself, and I still do.
Mhm.
Clint said it because we're not
This is,
kingdom focused.
this is not the kingdom.
Yeah,
Right.
and we want to make it.
Let it
We're in
pass.
this world, but we're not of this world.
Going back.
Let it pass.
It's supposed to, it is it's God's plan, the more we read, unfolding. And that's hard to watch because we want to pick up, bear our arms and save our country. But that's not to be,
I think that door was shut a
absolutely.
couple of decades ago.
And people haven't figured that out. A lot of people.
Clint did.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, well, I guess we will start chapter 16 next week. Larry? See you next week.